The Luna who refused to break. They said an alpha's rejection was a death sentence. They said a discarded Luna had no future. Alara Voss heard those whispers the night Kyle Thorne stood before their entire pack and chose power over her, chose another woman, another alliance, another life. The humiliation should have destroyed her. The shame should have sent her crawling into exile. But here's what they didn't know. Some wolves don't break when you cast them aside. Some come back with sharper teeth. And when Alara returned months later with a new alpha at her side and ice in her eyes, Kale realized he hadn't just lost his Luna, he'd created his greatest rival. Stay with us until the end to see how this story unfolds. If you're hooked already, hit that like button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. The Silver Ridge Pack House had never looked more beautiful, and that was precisely what made Alara's stomach turn. Lanterns hung from every beam, casting warm golden light across the great hall where wolves from 3 territories had gathered. The air smelled of pine smoke and roasted meat, of celebration and power. Laughter echoed off stone walls that had witnessed 100 years of pack history. This was supposed to be their night, hers and Kyle's. The autumn gathering, where they would stand together as Alpha and Luna, united, unbreakable. Alara stood near the eastern windows, watching her reflection in the darkened glass. The dress they'd chosen for her was deep emerald, cut to flatter, designed to impress. Her dark hair fell in careful waves over her shoulders. She looked every inch the Luna she was supposed to be. She also looked like a woman whose mate hadn't met her eyes in 3 days. "You look tense." The voice belonged to Marcus, Kael's beta, and one of the few wolves in Silver Ridge who'd bothered to be honest with her lately. He appeared at her elbow carrying 2 glasses of wine, offering one without waiting for her to ask. Alara took it. "Do I?" "Like you're waiting for something to go wrong." Marcus took a sip from his own glass, his gray eyes scanning the crowd, which, given the guest list tonight, isn't entirely paranoid. She followed his gaze. The hall was packed with visiting dignitaries, alphas from neighboring territories, their betas, their advisors. The Crescent Valley Pack had sent a full delegation. So had the Northern Ridge Wolves. Even the coastal territories had representatives here, wolves who normally kept to themselves unless politics demanded otherwise. And politics always demanded. "Where is he?" Alara asked quietly. Marcus didn't need to ask who. "Last I saw, he was in the upper gallery with Alpha Varen and his daughter." Something cold slithered down Alara's spine. "His daughter." "Sarah Varen." Marcus said the name like he was commenting on the weather, but Alara heard the warning underneath. "Apparently she's very interested in our territory's trade routes." "I'm sure that's all she's interested in." "Alara, don't." She set her wine glass down on the window ledge, untouched. "Don't tell me I'm imagining things. Don't tell me to give him space. I've given him nothing but space for weeks, and he's filled it with meetings I'm not invited to and conversations that stop when I enter a room." Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was careful. "Kyle is under a lot of pressure. The northern trade agreements are falling apart, and the coastal packs are— I know what the coastal packs are doing." Alara turned to face him fully. "I know every political problem we're facing because I'm supposed to be his partner in solving them. Except he stopped asking for my opinion the day Alpha Varen sent that first messenger." "That's not—" "It is." She kept her voice level, but her hands were shaking. She tucked them behind her back. "You know it is." Before Marcus could answer, a shift in the crowd's energy made them both look toward the main staircase. Kyle had appeared at the top of the steps, and beside him, like she'd been placed there by a set designer, was Sarah Varen. She was beautiful. Alara could admit that without flinching. Tall and willowy, with silver blonde hair that caught the lantern light like something out of a story. Her dress was white, bold choice for a pack gathering, and cut with the kind of elegant simplicity that cost a fortune. She laughed at something Kyle said, touching his arm with practiced ease. And Kyle looked at her the way he used to look at Alara. "Son of a bitch," Marcus breathed. Alara said nothing. She couldn't. If she opened her mouth, something would come out that she wouldn't be able to take back. Kale descended the stairs with Sarah at his side, and the crowd parted for them like water. Wolves who should have been equals suddenly seemed smaller in his presence. That was the thing about Kyle. He didn't just command respect, he consumed space. At 6'3", broad-shouldered and dark-haired, he looked like someone had carved the word alpha out of granite and taught it to walk. Alara had loved that about him once. The certainty, the strength, the way he could silence a room just by entering it. Now she watched him guide another woman through that same room, and all she felt was cold. "I should go to him," she said quietly. "Alara, maybe you should—" "I should go to my mate." She met Marcus's eyes. "That's what a Luna does, right? Stands beside her alpha?" She didn't wait for his answer. She moved through the crowd with the same grace she'd been taught since childhood, smiling at the wolves who nodded to her, accepting their murmured greetings without really hearing them. Her focus was singular. Reach Kyle before this night spun any further out of her control. She was 10 feet away when Kale finally saw her. Their eyes met across the crowded hall, and for just a second, one heartbeat, she saw something flicker in his expression. Guilt, maybe? Or regret? But then Sarah laughed again, a bright crystalline sound, and Kyle's attention shifted back to her like a compass finding north. Alara stopped walking. The cold feeling in her chest spread outward, numbing her fingers, her arms, her throat. She stood there in the middle of her own territory's celebration and watched her mate choose someone else's company over hers, watched him smile at someone else's joke, watched him lean in to hear something Sarah whispered, his hand settling, brief but unmistakable, on the small of her back. Someone bumped into Alara from behind, apologizing. She murmured something automatic and stepped aside, but she'd lost her momentum, lost her nerve. She couldn't walk up to them now, couldn't insert herself into whatever this was. She'd looked desperate, clingy, everything an alpha's mate wasn't supposed to be. "Alara." The new voice was female, warm with concern. Alara turned to find Mira, one of the pack's senior healers, watching her with worried eyes. "You look pale," Mira said gently. "Are you feeling all right?" "Fine." The lie came easily. "Just warm in here. Come sit down. I'll get you water." "I don't need—" "Humor me." Mira took Alara's elbow with the kind of gentle insistence that couldn't be argued with. She steered them toward one of the side chambers, away from the noise and the crowd and the sight of Kyle standing too close to a woman who wasn't his Luna. The smaller room was blessedly quiet, lit by only a few candles. Mira pressed a glass of cold water into Alara's hands and waited while she drank. "How long?" Mira asked softly. Alara set the glass down. "How long what? How long have you known?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Alara." Mira's voice was kind but firm. "I've been with this pack for 30 years. I've seen 3 alphas rise and fall. I know what ambition looks like when it starts to rot a bond from the inside." Alara's hands clenched around the empty glass. "He hasn't done anything. Yet." The word hung in the air between them like smoke. "The Varen Alliance?" Alara said finally. "It would solve everything, wouldn't it? Access to their northern territories, their trade routes, their military support if the coastal packs keep pushing? At what cost? That's what I keep asking myself." Alara set the glass aside and wrapped her arms around herself. "What exactly is Kyle willing to pay for that alliance?" Mira didn't answer. She didn't have to. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the muffled sounds of celebration from the main hall. Somewhere out there, wolves were dancing, drinking, laughing like the world wasn't quietly tearing itself apart. "What do I do?" Alara asked. She hated how small her voice sounded. "You remind him who you are," Mira said firmly. "You're not some accessory he can set aside when something shinier comes along. You're Luna of Silver Ridge. You've earned that title. Make him remember it." Alara wanted to believe her, wanted to march back into that hall and reclaim her place at Kyle's side with the kind of confidence that would make everyone else remember who she was too. But when she closed her eyes, all she saw was the way Kyle had looked at Sarah. Not with the comfortable affection of a long-term bond, but with the bright hunger of something new, something exciting, something that wasn't her. "I should get back," Alara said, standing. "Thank you for—" "Don't thank me." Mira stood too, reaching out to squeeze Alara's hand. "Just don't let him make you small. You're worth more than that." Alara nodded, not trusting her voice, and slipped back out into the corridor. She'd almost reached the main hall when she heard voices coming from one of the private meeting rooms. The door was slightly ajar, and she recognized Kyle's low rumble immediately. She should have kept walking, should have gone back to the party and played her role. Instead, she stopped. "Can't keep putting this off." That was Alpha Varen, his voice carrying the weight of decades of leadership. The Northern Pass will be locked with snow in 6 weeks. If we're going to formalize this alliance, we need to move now. I understand the timeline. Kael's voice was tight. But there are complications. You mean you're Luna? Silence. Alara's heart stopped beating. Alara is a good woman, Kael said carefully. She served Silver Ridge well. I'm not questioning her service. Varen's tone was practical, almost bored. I'm questioning whether she's the right partner for what comes next. The territories are changing, Kael. The old ways, single-pack leadership, isolated territories, they're dying. The future belongs to alliances, to unions that create power, not just maintain it. And you think I think my daughter brings connections you need. The Eastern Packs respect her family. The coastal territories would think twice before challenging a united front. And she's young, adaptable. She understands modern pack politics in a way that, forgive me, Alara doesn't. That's not fair. Fair? Varen laughed, sharp and cold. When has leadership ever been about fair? You want to protect your territory, or you want to be fair? Because I promise you, the wolves coming up from the coast won't care about your feelings when they decide Silver Ridge looks vulnerable. More silence. Alara pressed her hand against the wall to steady herself. If I did this, Kael said slowly, if I agreed to a formal alliance through a union with Serra, what happens to Alara? She steps aside gracefully. You provide for her, of course, a comfortable settlement, maybe a position as an advisor if she wants it. But the bond, Varen paused. The bond would have to be severed, publicly. You can't have two Lunas, and you can't afford the appearance of indecision. The pack would see it as betrayal. The pack will see it as strength, as a leader making hard choices for their future. Alara's well-liked, yes, but she's not irreplaceable. Serra is an investment in Silver Ridge's survival. Alara didn't wait to hear Kael's response. She turned and walked away, her footsteps silent on the stone floor, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack through her ribs. She made it to the eastern terrace before the shaking started. The night air was cold, sharp enough to hurt, and she gulped it down like she'd been drowning. Her hands gripped the stone railing hard enough to hurt. An investment in survival, not irreplaceable, severed publicly. The words circled in her head like vultures. She'd known something was wrong, had felt it in the growing distance between her and Kael, in the way he'd stopped reaching for her in the night, stopped asking her opinion on pack matters, stopped looking at her like she was someone who mattered. But hearing it spoken out loud, hearing Varen lay out the terms of her disposal like she was a piece of furniture being replaced, that was different. That was real. Found you? Alara spun around. Kael stood in the terrace doorway, backlit by the warm glow from inside. He looked tired, she realized. The kind of tired that came from carrying weight you weren't sure you could bear. You left the party, he said. So did you. He stepped out onto the terrace, closing the door behind him. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Alara tried to remember when that had stopped being easy, when looking at her mate had started feeling like standing on the edge of something dangerous. Are you all right? Kael asked. Are you? Something flickered in his expression. That's not an answer. Neither is that. Alara loosened her grip on the railing. Her palms ached. Why are you here, Kael? You're my Luna. You disappeared from a major pack event. Where else would I be? I don't know. She heard the edge in her own voice and didn't try to soften it. The upper gallery, maybe? The private meeting rooms? Wherever Serra Varen happens to be? Kael's jaw tightened. Alaris, don't. She held up a hand. Don't insult me by pretending you don't know what I'm talking about. I was being a good host. You were being a suitor. The word landed between them like a stone. Kael's expression shifted, surprise, then something darker. Defensiveness, maybe. Or guilt. That's not fair, he said. I heard you. Alara's voice was steady now, cold and clear as the night air. I heard your conversation with Alpha Varen about alliances and investments and what a good partnership with Serra would mean for Silver Ridge. The color drained from Kael's face. You were listening? You were planning. She took a step toward him. Planning my replacement. Planning how to sever our bond publicly so you could take another Luna without looking weak. It's more complicated than that. Then explain it to me. She spread her arms. Explain to me how selling off your mate like damaged goods is complicated. Explain how choosing political advantage over the bond we've built is anything other than exactly what it sounds like. Kale ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she'd seen 1,000 times when he was frustrated. The territory is at risk. You know that. The coastal packs are getting aggressive, and the northern trade routes are falling apart. Without stronger alliances, we've handled threats before. Not like this. His voice rose. Not with half the eastern territories looking at us like we're weak, like we're ripe for the taking. And you think parading around with Sarah Varen makes us look strong? I think uniting with the Varen pack gives us resources we desperately need. Then unite with them, Alara shouted. The words echoed off the stone. Form your alliance, secure your trade routes, do whatever political maneuvering you need to do. But don't stand there and tell me the only way to do it is by throwing me aside like I'm nothing. You're not nothing. Then what am I, KL? Her voice broke. Because right now I feel like an obstacle, like something in your way that you're looking for permission to remove. He didn't answer, couldn't maybe, and his silence told Alara everything she needed to know. She turned away, gripping the railing again, staring out at the dark forest beyond the pack house grounds. Somewhere out there, wolves were running, hunting, living their lives in simple, honest ways that didn't require betrayal. I've given you everything, she said quietly. 6 years, KL. 6 years of standing beside you, supporting your decisions, helping you lead this pack. I've negotiated disputes, managed resources, built relationships with every family in Silver Ridge. I've been a good Luna. I know. Then why isn't it enough? She looked at him over her shoulder. Why am I not enough? Because good isn't what we need anymore. The words came out harsh, unfiltered. We need exceptional. We need powerful connections and strategic advantages and a Luna who brings more to the table than just being well-liked by the pack. There it was, the truth, stripped of politics and careful phrasing. Alara turned to face him fully. You really believe that? I believe I have to think about Silver Ridge's future, about protecting hundreds of wolves who depend on me to make the right choices even when they're hard. Hard for who? Alara's laugh was bitter. You're not the one being discarded. You think this is easy for me? Kale's voice rose again. You think I want this? I'm trying to save our territory, Alara, our home, everything we've built. If that means making sacrifices, don't call me a sacrifice. Her voice was ice. Don't you dare make yourself the victim here. They stared at each other, the space between them feeling like miles instead of feet. I won't fight you on this, Alara said finally. If you've already decided, if you've already chosen Sarah and her father's alliance over our bond, I won't make a scene. I won't give the pack a reason to see me as bitter or vindictive. Something like relief crossed Kale's face. Alara, but understand this. She stepped closer, close enough to see her reflection in his eyes. When you sever this bond, when you stand in front of Silver Ridge and announce that I'm no longer your Luna, you don't get to pretend it was noble. You don't get to frame it as duty or necessity or anything other than exactly what it is. You choosing power over love. Remember that, Kael. When you're standing beside your new Luna, when you're reaping the benefits of your strategic alliance, remember that this was your choice. She walked past him, heading for the door. Where are you going? He called after her. To pack. Alara, you don't have to leave tonight. We can... She stopped in the doorway, not looking back. Yes, I do. Because if I stay, I'll say something I can't take back. Or worse, I'll try to change your mind, and we both know you've already made it up. She left him standing on the terrace alone. The pack house felt different as Alara climbed the stairs to her chambers. Smaller somehow. Less like home, and more like a place she was visiting. A place she'd already started to leave. Her rooms were in the eastern wing, connected to Kael's by a shared door that had been left open since the day they'd bonded. She closed it now, quietly, and turned the lock with fingers that had finally stopped shaking. The space looked the same as always. Her clothes in the closet, her books on the shelves, her favorite chair positioned by the window where she liked to read in the mornings. 6 years of life accumulated in these rooms. 6 years of being Luna. All of it suddenly meaningless. Alara pulled a travel bag from the closet and started packing. Not everything. She couldn't take everything. Just the essentials. Clothes. A few personal items. The silver bracelet her mother had given her before she died. She was folding a sweater when the knock came. "It's me," Marcus called through the door. "Can I come in?" She almost said no. Almost told him she needed to be alone. But Marcus had been honest with her when no one else would, and she owed him at least a goodbye. She opened the door. Marcus took one look at the half-packed bag and sighed. So it's happening. It was always going to happen. Alara went back to her packing. "I just didn't want to see it. There's still time. You could fight this. The pack will follow their alpha." She folded another sweater, careful and precise. "They always do. And Kael's right about one thing. He can offer them more with the Varen Alliance than he can with me." "That's not true, isn't it?" She looked at Marcus. "What do I bring to Silver Ridge that Sarah Varen can't bring better? I have no political connections outside this territory, no special skills or resources. I'm just me. And right now, that's not enough." "You're Luna." "I was Luna." The correction hurt to say. Past tense. As of tomorrow night's gathering, when Kael makes his announcement, I'll just be Alara Voss again. No title, no territory, no place here. Marcus sat down heavily in her reading chair. "Where will you go?" "I don't know yet." She hadn't let herself think that far ahead. "Away. Somewhere I can figure out who I am when I'm not defined by being someone's mate." "The Wild Lands?" She paused, one hand on a folded shirt. The Wild Lands. The territories beyond pack borders, where lone wolves and rogues and outcasts went when they had nowhere else to be. Dangerous. Unpredictable. Free. "Maybe," she said. "Alara, that's crazy." "Reckless?" She met his eyes. "What choice do I have, Marcus? Stay here and watch Kael build a life with someone else? Accept some pity position on the council where everyone can whisper about the poor discarded Luna? No, I won't do that. I won't make myself small so everyone else can feel comfortable." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "You're one of the strongest people I know. Kael's making a mistake." "Maybe," Alara resumed packing. "But it's his mistake to make." They sat in silence while she finished. The bag wasn't very full. She was traveling light, taking only what she could carry easily. When she was done, she set it by the door and turned to face Marcus one last time. "Take care of them," she said. "The pack. I know Sarah will bring connections and resources, but they'll need someone who remembers they're more than just political assets. Be that person, Marcus." "I will." He stood, crossing to her. For a moment she thought he might hug her. Instead, he just gripped her shoulder firmly. "Be safe out there." "I'll try." After he left, Alara stood alone in her chambers, her former chambers, and let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. The anger, the grief, the sharp, bitter taste of betrayal. Then she locked it all away somewhere deep and unreachable. She had one more night in Silver Ridge, one more night as Luna, even if only in name. Tomorrow she would leave this place and never look back. But tonight she would attend the final gathering, would stand in that hall one last time and let everyone see exactly what Kael was throwing away. She changed into a different dress, not the emerald one they'd chosen for her. That felt like a costume now, something designed to make her into who they wanted her to be. Instead, she chose deep red, bold, unapologetic, the color of blood and fire and things that refused to die quietly. When she descended the stairs an hour later, the party was still going strong. The main hall buzzed with conversation and laughter, wolves from different packs mingling with the easy comfort of those who knew they were safe here. Allies, at least for tonight. Alara moved through the crowd like a ghost. A few wolves nodded to her, raised their glasses in greeting. She smiled back, automatic and empty. She found Kael near the center of the hall, surrounded by visiting alphas. Sarah stood at his side, looking radiant and confident and everything a political alliance should be. Their eyes met across the room. Kael's expression shifted, surprise, then something harder to read. He said something to the wolves around him and started moving in her direction. Alara turned and walked away. She spent the rest of the evening on the edges of the gathering, present but not participating, visible but untouchable. And she watched Kael work the room with practiced charm. Watched Sarah laugh at the right moments, touch the right arms, say the right things to make visiting dignitaries feel important. Watched the future take shape without her in it. As the night wore on, Alara found herself back on the eastern terrace, the same spot where she'd confronted Kael earlier. The same cold air, the same dark forest. Different woman standing here, though. Someone harder. Someone who understood exactly how little she'd ever mattered in the grand scheme of pack politics and alpha ambitions. I thought I might find you here. Alara didn't turn around. She recognized the voice. Alpha Varen himself. Come to gloat or offer sympathies or whatever it was powerful men did when they won. Enjoying the party? She asked, her voice light and poisonous. Immensely. Varen stepped up beside her, looking out at the same view. Your pack knows how to celebrate. They do. I wanted to speak with you, he continued, about the announcement tomorrow. What about it? Kael plans to handle it with dignity, to honor your service to Silver Ridge while making clear that the territory's needs have evolved. How generous, Varen chuckled. You have every right to be angry. Do I? Alara finally looked at him. Or is that another thing being decided for me? The older Alpha studied her with eyes that had seen decades of pack politics. You're not what I expected. And what did you expect? Tears, maybe. Pleading. Some last desperate attempt to change his mind. Sorry to disappoint. You didn't. Varen's smile was thin. In fact, you've impressed me. Not many wolves would handle this with such composure. What choice do I have? Alara turned back to the forest. Fight it and be seen as bitter and difficult? Make a scene and give everyone a reason to believe Kael was right to replace me? No, thank you. I'll leave with my dignity intact. Smart. Survival instinct. They stood in silence for a moment. For what it's worth, Varen said quietly, I do believe you were a good Luna, but Kael needs more than good right now. He needs exceptional. And Sarah is an investment in his future. I know. Alara's voice was flat. I heard you the first time. Varen nodded and turned to leave. At the doorway, he paused. The wild lands are dangerous for a lone wolf. Alara smiled, sharp and cold. Good thing I'm dangerous too. After he left, she stood alone on the terrace for a long time. The party continued inside, muffled and distant. Out in the forest, night birds called to each other. The wind carried the scent of pine and earth and the promise of winter coming. Somewhere out there, beyond pack territories and political alliances and alphas who chose power over love, there was a life waiting for her. She just had to be brave enough to claim it. Alara took one last look at the pack house, at the warm lights and stone walls that had been her home for 6 years, at the territory she'd served, at the wolves she'd led. Then she turned her back on all of it and went inside to sleep in her chambers one final time. Tomorrow, Kael would make his announcement. Tomorrow, she would be free. And tomorrow, the Luna who refused to break would walk into the wildlands alone and discover exactly who she was when no one else was watching. The announcement came at noon, when the sun was high enough to make shadows disappear. Alara stood at the back of the great hall, pressed against the stone wall where the crowd couldn't see her hands shaking. The room was packed, not just Silver Ridge wolves, but all the visiting dignitaries who'd stayed overnight. Word had spread that Alpha Kael had something important to say, and no one wanted to miss it. She'd dressed carefully that morning. Simple gray tunic, dark pants, her hair pulled back in a practical braid. Nothing that screamed discarded Luna, nothing that would give them the satisfaction of seeing her broken. Kael stood on the raised platform at the front of the hall, Sarah Varen at his right side. Alpha Varen stood to his left, looking pleased with himself. Marcus was there too, his expression carved from granite, refusing to meet Alara's eyes from across the room. Thank you all for gathering, Kael began, his voice carrying easily through the space. He'd always been good at this, at commanding attention without seeming to try. I know many of you have travel ahead, but I wanted to address you before you left Silver Ridge. The crowd settled into attentive silence. These are changing times for all pack territories, Kael continued. The old certainties, isolated leadership, single-pack autonomy, they're becoming liabilities in a world that demands cooperation and strategic alliances. Alara's jaw clenched. He was using the same words Varen had used, the same justifications. which is why I'm announcing today a formal alliance between Silver Ridge and the Varen territories. Kael gestured to Alpha Varen, who nodded gravely. This partnership will strengthen both our packs, secure crucial trade routes, and provide mutual protection against external threats. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some approving, some uncertain. To cement this alliance, Kael said, and Alara felt her stomach drop even though she'd known this was coming, I will be taking Sarah Varen as my Luna. The murmurs turned to shocked whispers. Heads turned, searching the crowd until they found Alara. She kept her face blank, her posture straight. I know this comes as a surprise to many of you, Kael continued, and had the audacity to look uncomfortable. Alara Voss has served Silver Ridge with dedication and grace for 6 years. She has been a valued partner and leader. But the needs of our territory must come first, and this alliance requires a union that brings strategic value to our pack's future. Strategic value. Like she was a broken tool being replaced with a newer model. Alara has agreed to step aside, Kael said, which was a lie. She hadn't agreed to anything. She'd just stopped fighting. She will be provided for generously and will always have a home in Silver Ridge should she choose to stay. Should she choose? As if she had any real choice. The formal bonding ceremony will take place in 3 days, Kael finished. I ask for your support as we enter this new chapter. The hall erupted in conversation. Some wolves looked genuinely shocked. Others nodded like they'd expected this all along. A few, very few, looked at Alara with something like sympathy. She didn't wait to hear more. She turned and walked out of the hall, her footsteps silent, her head high. No one tried to stop her. No one called her name. By the time she reached her chambers, her hands had stopped shaking. Something cold and hard had settled in her chest where her heart used to be. She grabbed her packed bag from where she'd hidden it under the bed and took one last look around the room. 6 years. Gone in a single announcement. She was halfway down the back stairs when Marcus caught up to her. Alara, wait. She didn't stop. Nothing to wait for. Please. He grabbed her arm, not hard, just enough to make her pause. Don't leave like this. Like what? Quietly? Without making a scene? She pulled her arm free. That's what everyone wants, isn't it? For me to disappear gracefully so Kael can have his political wedding without the awkwardness of his previous Luna hanging around. That's not... Marcus's voice cracked. You know that's not what I want. What you want doesn't matter. The words came out harsher than she meant them. What I want doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what's best for Silver Ridge, and apparently that's Sarah Varen. Where will you go? Does it matter? It matters to me. Alara looked at him. Really looked. Marcus had been Kael's beta for 8 years, her friend for 6. He'd stood witness at their bonding ceremony, had celebrated with them, advised them, supported them through every pack crisis. And now he looked like a man watching something precious shatter and knowing he was powerless to stop it. I'll be fine, she said, softer now. I always am. The Wildlands are where I need to be right now. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder. Tell Kael I'll be gone by sunset. He can have his ceremony without worrying about me ruining the aesthetic. Alara... Goodbye, Marcus. She walked away before he could say anything else, before the tears burning behind her eyes could fall, before she could change her mind and do something stupid like beg Kael to reconsider. The Wildlands started 3 miles beyond Silver Ridge's eastern border. The transition was subtle at first. Marked trees gave way to unmarked ones. Maintained trails disappeared into game paths. The scent of pack territory faded into something wilder and less certain. Alara crossed the border just as the sun began to sink toward the horizon. She didn't look back. The forest was different here, denser. The trees grew closer together, their branches tangling overhead until the sky disappeared. Sound changed too. Less birdsong, more rustling in the undergrowth. Things watching, things waiting. She walked until her feet ached and the light faded to gray. Found a small clearing near a stream and set up a basic camp. No fire. She wasn't ready to announce her presence to whatever else lived out here. That first night she didn't sleep. Just sat with her back against a tree, listening to the forest breathe around her. Somewhere in the distance something howled. Not a wolf. The sound was wrong, too high-pitched and warbling. She gripped the knife she'd brought and waited for dawn. The days blurred together after that. Walking, hunting, surviving, she moved deeper into the wild lands, away from packed territories and their politics and their rejections. The forest taught her quickly which plants were safe to eat, which water sources were clean, how to read tracks and avoid the things that left them. She also learned she wasn't as alone as she'd thought. The rogues found her on the 6th day. She'd been tracking a deer moving quietly through a dense stand of pines when 3 wolves materialized from the shadows. Not shifted, human form, but she could smell the wolf on them. Rogue males, lean and dangerous, their eyes assessing her like a resource to be claimed or eliminated. "Well, well," the largest one said. He had a scar running from his temple to his jaw, and his smile showed too many teeth. "Look what wandered into our territory." Alara's hand moved to her knife. "I'm passing through." "Our territory, our rules." Scar moved closer. "You want to pass through? You pay the toll." "I don't have anything you'd want." "I can think of a few things." His eyes dragged over her in a way that made her skin crawl. The other 2 rogues laughed, spreading out to flank her. Classic pack hunting formation, even if they were pretending they weren't a pack. Alara's mind raced. 3 against 1. She was a decent fighter, but these were males who'd survived the wild lands long enough to claim territory. They'd be vicious, experienced. "Last chance," Scar said. "Pay up, or we take what we want." She drew her knife. "Come try." They attacked as a unit. Scar from the front, the other 2 from her flanks. Alara twisted, slashing at the closest one, feeling her blade connect with his arm. He yelped and fell back, but Scar was already on her, grabbing her wrist and twisting until the knife fell from her grip. She headbutted him, hard, heard the crack of his nose breaking. He roared and backhanded her across the face. Stars exploded in her vision. She hit the ground hard, tasting blood. "Stupid bitch," Scar snarled, looming over her. "Now we're gonna—" The arrow took him through the shoulder. He went down screaming. The other 2 rogues froze, looking around wildly for the source. A second arrow buried itself in the tree next to the one Alara had cut. "Leave!" The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, echoing through the trees. "Now!" The rogues didn't wait to be told twice. They grabbed their wounded leader and ran, crashing through the undergrowth like panicked deer. Alara pushed herself up, spitting blood, her head ringing. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, broad-shouldered, carrying a bow with casual competence. Male, alpha, from the power radiating off him. "You're bleeding," he said. "I'm fine. You're sitting in the dirt with a split lip arguing with someone who just saved your life." He lowered his bow. "That's not fine. That's stupid." Alara glared at him. "I didn't ask for your help. Lucky for you, I gave it anyway." He walked closer, and she got her first good look at him, maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back and a short tail, gray eyes that looked like they'd seen too much, and a face that might have been handsome if it wasn't so hard. "What's a lone wolf doing this deep in rogue territory?" "Passing through." "To where?" "None of your business." He laughed, sharp and humorless. "You always this friendly to people who keep you from getting assaulted? You always interrogate people you rescue?" They stared at each other. Alara could feel her heart pounding, adrenaline still singing through her veins. This stranger was dangerous. She could sense it in every line of his body, in the way he held himself like violence was always an option. "My camp's a mile east," he said finally. "You can clean that lip and sleep somewhere those rogues won't come back for you." "I can take care of myself." "Yeah, I saw that." He turned to leave. "Offer stands for the next 30 seconds. After that, you're on your own." Alara looked at her knife lying in the dirt, at the blood on her hands, at the forest around her, full of things that wanted to hurt her. "What's your name?" she called after him. He paused, glancing back. Riker Dane. I know who you are." His gray eyes pinned her in place. "Alara Voss, former Luna of Silver Ridge. Word travels fast in the wildlands." Her stomach dropped. "How?" "Like I said, word travels." Riker started walking again. "You coming or not?" She picked up her knife, grabbed her bag, and followed. Riker's camp was more permanent than she'd expected. A sturdy shelter built against a rock face, a proper fire pit, supplies organized with military precision. He moved through it with the ease of someone who'd been here a while. "Sit," he said, pointing to a log near the fire. I'll get water. Alara sat, her body starting to register all the places she'd be bruised tomorrow. Riker returned with a clean cloth and a canteen. He handed them to her without comment. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't mention it. He started building a fire, his movements efficient. Those rogues won't come back tonight, but they'll remember you. You should move on at first light. Where to? Anywhere that isn't their hunting grounds. He struck flint, coaxing sparks into kindling. Though honestly, most of the wild lands are claimed by someone. Rogues, outcasts, exiles, all of them territorial, all of them looking for easy targets. Like lone females? Like anyone traveling alone without pack protection. The fire caught, flames licking at the wood. What are you doing out here anyway? Silver Ridge isn't far. You could have stayed, found a place in the pack structure. Could have. Didn't want to. Riker looked at her across the fire, his expression unreadable. Because K.L. Thorne chose a political alliance over his Luna? Heat flooded Alara's face. You heard about that. Everyone heard about that. The Alpha of Silver Ridge publicly rejecting his bonded mate for a Varen daughter? That's the kind of story wolves tell around fires for years. He fed more wood to the flames. Humiliating. Yes, thank you for the reminder. I wasn't trying to... Riker stopped, shook his head. Sorry, that came out wrong. They sat in silence for a moment, the fire crackling between them. For what it's worth, Riker said quietly, K.L. Thorne's an idiot. Alara laughed, bitter and sharp. Most people think he's brilliant, a strong leader making hard choices for his pack. Most people are idiots too. Riker met her eyes. I've seen a lot of alphas in my time, the ones who treat their mates like bargaining chips. They always think they're being strategic. Usually they're just being cowards. You speak from experience? I speak from observation. He leaned back against a tree. I've been in the wild lands for 3 years. You see a lot out here. Exiled alphas who lost challenges, betas who couldn't stomach their leaders' decisions, mates who were cast aside for younger, prettier, more politically convenient options. His eyes found hers again. You're not the first, Alara. You won't be the last. The words should have been comforting. They just made her feel worse. So what? She said. I just accept that I'm a statistic? Another discarded Luna who couldn't hold her alpha's interest? No. Riker's voice was hard. You accept that Kael made a choice, and now you get to make yours. You can stay out here feeling sorry for yourself, or you can decide who you're going to be now that you're not defined by being someone's mate. Easy for you to say. You think so? He laughed, cold and sharp. I lost my entire pack, Alara. Every wolf I'd sworn to protect, gone in a single night because I trusted the wrong person. So don't tell me I don't understand loss. Alara stared at him. What happened? That's a story for another night. He stood, moving to check the perimeter of the camp. Get some sleep. We'll talk more in the morning. We? You think I'm letting you wander off alone after pulling you out of that mess? Riker's smile was grim. Whether you like it or not, you're my problem now. At least until we get you somewhere safer. I didn't ask to be your problem. And I didn't ask to find a former Luna getting jumped by rogues in my territory. Seems like neither of us is getting what we asked for today. Despite everything, the pain, the exhaustion, the humiliation still burning in her chest, Alara found herself almost smiling. Your territory? I've held this stretch for 2 years. That makes it mine. You're an alpha without a pack claiming wild land as territory. Doesn't that make you a rogue too? Probably. Riker settled back by the fire. The difference is I chose this, and I protect what's mine. The way he said it made something shift in Alara's chest. Not attraction. It was too soon for that, and she was too raw. But something like recognition, like meeting someone who understood what it meant to have everything taken and still refuse to break. Why did you help me? She asked. Riker was quiet for a long moment. The fire cast shadows across his face, making him look older. Harder. Because I know what it's like, he said finally, to be thrown away by people who were supposed to protect you. And because... He paused. Because someone helped me once, when I had nothing and nowhere to go. I figured I'd pass it forward. Who helped you? Someone who's dead now. His voice was flat. Like I said, story for another night. They didn't talk much after that. Riker showed her where she could sleep, a sheltered spot near the fire, protected by the rock face. She lay down with her bag as a pillow and tried not to think about how different this was from her chambers in Silver Ridge. Sleep came in fits and starts, interrupted by unfamiliar sounds and the ache of bruises forming. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Kael standing on that platform, Sarah at his side, announcing her replacement like it was just another piece of pack business. When dawn came gray and cold, she found Riker already awake, cooking something over the fire. "Hungry?" he asked. "Starving." They ate in silence. Some kind of bird he'd caught, seasoned with wild herbs. It wasn't fancy, but it was the best thing Alara had tasted in days. "So," Riker said, wiping his hands on his pants, "what's your plan?" "Keep moving. Find somewhere I can—" She trailed off. "I don't know. Exist without everyone knowing I'm the Luna who got discarded. The wild lands go on for hundreds of miles. Plenty of places to disappear. You make it sound easy. It's not." Riker's expression was serious. "Out here, you're either predator or prey. And lone wolves, especially ones who aren't used to this life, they don't last long. Then what am I supposed to do? Learn to be a predator." He stood, offering her a hand up. "Lucky for you, I'm a decent teacher." Alara looked at his outstretched hand, at this stranger who'd saved her life and was now offering to help her survive in a world she didn't understand. "Why?" she asked. "What's in it for you?" Riker's smile was sharp. "Maybe I'm just a good person." "No one out here is a good person." "You're probably right." He kept his hand extended. "But I've got my reasons. You want my help or not?" Alara took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. "Good," Riker said. "First lesson, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. My instincts told me to stay in Silver Ridge and try to fix things with Kael. I said trust them, not always follow them." He started breaking down the camp with practiced efficiency. "There's a difference between instinct and fear. Learn to tell which is which, and you'll survive." Over the next weeks, Riker proved to be exactly what he'd promised, a harsh but effective teacher. He showed her how to track prey through terrain that changed daily, how to fight dirty, because in the wildlands, honor was a luxury that got you killed, how to read the forest, interpreting scents and sounds that she'd spent 6 years in pack territory learning to ignore. He also taught her about the wildlands themselves, the territories carved out by various rogue groups, the neutral zones where deals were made and blood feuds put on hold, the places no one went because the things living there didn't discriminate between pack wolf and rogue. "The wildlands have their own rules," Riker explained one evening as they made camp. "No alpha councils, no formal challenges, just strength and intelligence and the will to survive." Sounds brutal. It is. He tested the tension on a snare trap. But it's honest. No one pretends to care about you while planning to replace you. Out here, if someone wants you dead, they say it to your face. Is that supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be true. As the days passed, Alara found herself changing. Her hands grew calloused, her reflexes sharpened. She learned to sleep light, to wake at the smallest sound, to move through the forest like she was part of it instead of an intruder. She also learned about Riker. Not all at once. He parceled out his history in small pieces, like admitting to weakness. But gradually the story emerged. He'd been alpha of a mid-sized pack in the Northern Territories, younger than most alphas, promoted after the previous leader died without an heir. He'd been good at it, fair, strong, respected. Then his beta betrayed him. He'd been planning it for months, Riker said one night, his voice carefully empty, cutting deals with a rival pack, positioning himself to take over. I trusted him. We'd grown up together, and the whole time he was setting me up to fail. What happened? The rival pack attacked during a winter storm. My beta led them right to our den. Riker stared into the fire. 43 wolves, dead in less than an hour. The ones who survived scattered. I tried to find them, to rebuild, but he shook his head. They blamed me, said I should have seen it coming, should have protected them. That's not fair. Fair doesn't matter when everyone you love is dead. His jaw clenched. I challenged my beta, killed him. Then I walked into the wildlands and never looked back. Alara didn't know what to say. Her own loss, painful as it was, felt smaller in comparison. She'd lost a mate who'd never really valued her. Riker had lost everything. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Don't be. It taught me not to trust anyone who says they'll stand beside you when things get hard. He looked at her. Present company excluded. You trust me? I'm teaching you how to survive in one of the most dangerous places in the territories. If I didn't trust you at least a little, you'd be on your own. It was the closest thing to a compliment she'd gotten in weeks. 2 months into her exile, Alara woke to the sound of voices. She was on her feet with her knife drawn before her eyes fully opened, instincts screaming danger. Riker was already awake, bow in hand, his expression grim. How many? She whispered. 4, maybe 5. He moved to the edge of their camp, listening. They're trying to be quiet, failing. Rogues? Worse. Riker's voice was tight. Pack scouts. Alara's blood ran cold. From where? Only one way to find out. He stood, stepping into the open clearing just beyond their shelter. I know you're out there. Might as well show yourselves. For a moment, nothing. Then 4 wolves emerged from the tree line, all in human form, all wearing the marks of organized pack structure. The leader, a female with sharp features and sharper eyes, stepped forward. Riker Dane, she said. Heard you were dead. Heard wrong. Riker's bow stayed level. What do you want, Kira? Not you. Kira's eyes found Alara, who'd moved to stand beside Riker. We want her. Alara's grip on her knife tightened. Why? Because Alpha Kale Thorne put out word he's looking for his former Luna. Kira's smile was cold. And there's a reward for bringing you back. The words hung in the air like poison. Alara's mind spun. Kyle was looking for her. After everything, after the public humiliation, the cold dismissal, the carefully worded announcement that she was being provided for but essentially erased, he was hunting her down like she was property that had wandered off. There's no reward worth dying for, Riker said, his voice calm but his bow never wavering from Kira's chest. Turn around, leave, forget you saw us. Kira laughed. You think you can take all 4 of us? I think I can put an arrow through your throat before you finish that sentence. Riker's smile was all teeth. Want to test it? The other scouts shifted, hands moving toward weapons. Alara counted the odds automatically. 4 against 2, all of them trained pack fighters, probably sent because they were expendable enough to risk, but skilled enough to succeed. I'm not going back, Alara said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Tell Kyle I'm not his problem anymore. That's not really your choice. Kira took a step forward. Alpha Thorne was very clear he wants you returned, unharmed preferably, but returned either way. Why? The question burst out before Alara could stop it. He chose Sarah. He made his alliance. What does he want with me? I don't ask Alphas why they want what they want. I just deliver. Kira's eyes flicked to her companions. Last chance, Dain. Step aside or we go through you. Riker's answer was to draw his bowstring tighter. Everything happened at once. 2 scouts rushed Riker from the sides while Kira went straight for Alara. The 4th hung back, circling, looking for an opening. Alara barely got her knife up in time to block Kira's first strike, a vicious slash that would have opened her throat if she'd been slower. Nothing personal, Kira grunted, pressing the attack. Just business. Alara didn't waste breath answering. She focused on not dying, on remembering everything Riker had taught her about fighting dirty. When Kira overextended on a thrust, Alara grabbed her wrist and twisted hard, using the woman's own momentum to send her stumbling. She followed with a kick to Kira's knee that connected with a satisfying crack. Kira went down cursing. Behind her, Alara heard the thrum of Riker's bow, a scream, the sound of bodies hitting the ground. She didn't look, couldn't afford to. The 4th scout was moving in, a massive male with arms like tree trunks, and a blade that looked like it could split her in half. You're making this harder than it needs to be, he said, almost conversational. Alpha just wants to talk to you. He had 6 years to talk to me. Alara circled, keeping her knife between them. He chose to talk to Sarah Varen instead. Politics. The scout shrugged. Doesn't mean he didn't care about you. Funny way of showing it. He lunged. Alara dodged left but wasn't quite fast enough. His blade caught her arm, opening a line of fire from shoulder to elbow. She bit back a scream and slashed at his face. He jerked back, giving her space to run. She didn't run. She was so tired of running. Instead, she grabbed a burning branch from their campfire and shoved it into the scout's face. He howled, stumbling backward, and Alara used the moment to sweep his legs. He hit the ground hard. She kicked his blade away and pressed her knife to his throat. "Tell Kyle," she said, breathing hard, "that if he wants to talk to me, he can come find me himself. And when he does, I'll tell him exactly what I think of his politics." She pulled back, letting the scout scramble away. He grabbed his companion, Kira, limping badly, and they disappeared into the forest. The other two scouts weren't going anywhere. Riker's arrows had found their marks. "You let them go," Riker said. It wasn't a question. "I'm not a killer." "You might need to become one." He moved to check the bodies, retrieving his arrows with practiced efficiency. "They'll report back to Kyle. He'll know exactly where you are." "Good." Alara pressed her hand to her bleeding arm, trying to slow the flow. "Let him come. I'm done hiding." Riker looked at her for a long moment. "You're bleeding." "I noticed." "Sit down. I'll stitch it." The wound wasn't as bad as it felt, but it was deep enough to need closing. Riker worked quickly, his hands surprisingly gentle despite the circumstances. Alara watched the forest while he worked, half expecting another attack. "This changes things," Riker said quietly, tying off the last stitch. "Kael sending scouts this deep into wild lands. That's not just about wanting to talk. That's about control." "He doesn't control me anymore." "He thinks he does. That's worse." Riker sat back, studying her. "What did you do to make him this determined?" "Nothing. I left, disappeared." "Exactly what he wanted." "Clearly not." Riker started gathering their supplies. "We need to move. Those scouts will bring reinforcements, and I'd rather not be here when they arrive." They broke camp in minutes, leaving nothing behind but dead scouts and questions. Riker led them deeper into the wild lands, moving with purpose now, instead of the meandering pace they'd kept before. "Where are we going?" Alara asked after an hour of hard traveling. "Somewhere Kael's wolves won't follow." "Where's that?" Riker glanced back at her, his expression grim. "The Deadlands." Alara had heard of the Deadlands. Every wolf had. They were the stories mothers told to keep children from wandering too far from pack territory, a stretch of wilderness so hostile that even rogues avoided it. The land itself was wrong there, corrupted by something that had happened decades ago. Pack lore said an alpha had tried to expand his territory by force, using dark rituals to bind the land itself to his will. It had backfired spectacularly, killing his entire pack and leaving the earth poisoned. "That's suicide," Alara said. "That's survival. The Deadlands are neutral ground. No pack claims them, no rogues hunt there. It's the one place Kael won't send his wolves. Because anyone who goes in doesn't come out." "Not true." Riker's smile was sharp. "I've been in and out 3 times. You just need to know the safe paths." "And you know them?" "I do now. Learned the hard way." He pushed through a dense thicket, holding branches back for her. "You trust me?" Did she? This stranger who'd saved her life, taught her to survive, and was now leading her toward the most dangerous place in the territories. She barely knew him, had no reason to believe he wouldn't abandon her the first time things got truly difficult, but he'd stood beside her against Kira's scouts, had stitched her wound with hands that knew how to be gentle, had looked at her like she was a person instead of a political inconvenience. "Yes," Alara said. "I trust you." Something shifted in Riker's expression. Surprise, maybe, or something softer. "Then stay close and do exactly what I say. The Deadlands don't forgive mistakes." They reached the border of the Deadlands at dusk. Alara felt it before she saw it, a wrongness in the air, like the forest was holding its breath. The trees changed first, their bark turning gray and lifeless. Their branches twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. The ground became sparse, the rich soil giving way to ashen earth that crunched under their feet. "Don't eat anything that grows here," Riker said. "Don't drink from any standing water, and if you hear voices calling your name, ignore them." Voices? The land remembers the wolves who died here. Sometimes it tries to add to the collection. He pulled out a small pouch and sprinkled something across the ground, salt mixed with herbs. "This marks a safe path. Stay on it. Step off, and you're on your own." They walked single file, Riker in front, following a trail only he could see. The deeper they went, the worse it got. The air tasted like metal. Strange sounds echoed from the dead trees, Not animal, not wind, just wrong. Twice, Alara saw movement in her peripheral vision, but when she turned to look, nothing was there. "How much further?" she asked, hating how thin her voice sounded. "2 miles to the heart. There's a shelter there, ruins of the old Pax Den. It's the safest place in the Deadlands. Safe is relative, right?" Very. Night fell like a curtain, sudden and absolute. Riker lit a torch, the flames burning an unnatural blue-green. It cast barely enough light to see the path ahead. That's when Alara heard it. "Alara!" Her name whispered from the darkness. Familiar voice. Her mother's voice. "Alara, sweetheart." She stopped walking. "Don't listen," Riker said sharply. "It's not real." But it sounded real. Sounded exactly like her mother, who died when Alara was 12, whose face she could barely remember but whose voice had never quite faded. "Alara, I'm here. Come find me." "It's not her." Riker grabbed her arm. "The Deadlands feed on grief, on loss. They'll use anything to pull you off the path." "But what if it's not her?" His grip tightened. "Look at me. Alara, look at me." She did. Riker's gray eyes were steady, certain. "Whatever you hear," he said, "whatever you see, it's not real. The only real thing is this path and the fact that we keep walking. Understand?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. They kept moving. Her mother's voice called again, pleading now, begging Alara to come to her. Other voices joined in. Her father, who'd remarried and never looked back after his first mate died. Marcus, asking why she'd left him behind. Even Kyle, his voice cracking with false emotion, saying he'd made a mistake and needed her back. Alara clenched her jaw and walked. One foot in front of the other, eyes on Riker's back, refusing to look at the shapes moving in the darkness, refusing to listen to the voices that knew exactly how to hurt her. When they finally reached the ruins, she was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. The old den was half collapsed, but enough structure remained to provide shelter. Riker set up a perimeter with more of his salt mixture, creating a protective circle around their camp. "We're safe here," he said. "The voices can't cross the barrier." "How do you know?" "Because I've tested it." He started a fire, normal colored this time, and began heating water. "First time I came to the Deadlands, I spent 3 days listening to my dead packmates call for me. Nearly drove me insane. Then I found this place and the voices stopped." Alara sank down by the fire, her whole body aching. "Why did you come back?" "Because sometimes the only way to survive is to go where no one else will follow." Riker handed her a cup of hot tea, something that tasted bitter but cleared the metallic tang from her mouth. "And because I needed to prove to myself that I could face the worst thing in my head and come out the other side." "Did it work?" "I'm still here, aren't I?" They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. Beyond the salt circle, the Deadlands whispered and called, but the voices couldn't reach them here. "Thank you," Alara said finally, "for bringing me here, for keeping me safe." "Don't thank me yet. We still have to get out." "When?" "Few days. Let Kale's scouts give up looking for us. Let the trail go cold." Riker poked at the fire. "Then we head south. There's a rogue settlement there, not friendly, but neutral. You can disappear there, start over." "Is that what you want? For me to disappear?" The question hung between them. Riker looked up, his expression unreadable. "What I want," he said slowly, "is for you to have a choice, something you haven't had in a long time." "And what about you? Do you have a choice?" "I chose this life. Chose isolation over the risk of being betrayed again." "That sounds lonely." "It is." He met her eyes. "But it's safe." "Safe isn't the same as living." Riker's laugh was bitter. "Says the woman who ran away to the wild lands." "I didn't run away. I left." Alara leaned forward. "There's a difference. Running is about fear. Leaving is about choosing yourself over the people who don't choose you." "Is it?" Riker's voice was quiet. "Or are you just telling yourself that so it hurts less?" The words hit harder than they should have. Alara looked away, blinking against the sudden burn in her eyes. "I don't know," she admitted. "I don't know anything anymore. 6 years I spent being Luna, being Kyle's partner, and it meant nothing. He erased me in a single announcement, and now he's hunting me like I'm something he owns instead of someone he threw away." Her voice cracked. So you tell me, Riker, am I running or choosing? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like the same damn thing. Riker was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved around the fire to sit beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. You're choosing, he said firmly. You're choosing to survive in the hardest way possible instead of accepting the easy path of staying where you weren't wanted. That takes more courage than Kael Thorne will ever have. You don't know that. I know he let you go. That's all I need to know. Alara turned to look at him. In the firelight, Riker's hard edges seemed softer. He'd been kind to her in his rough way, had protected her, taught her, stood beside her against wolves who wanted to drag her back to a life she'd escaped. Why? She asked. Why do all this for someone you barely know? Because I know what it's like, Riker said, to lose everything and have no one give a damn. And because... He hesitated. Because you're stronger than you know. Stronger than Kael ever deserved. Something warm unfurled in Alara's chest. Not attraction, not yet, she was too raw for that, but recognition, understanding, the beginning of something that might become trust. Thank you, she said. You keep saying that. I keep meaning it. They stayed by the fire, not talking, just existing in the same space. For the first time since leaving Silver Ridge, Alara felt something other than grief or anger. She felt possible. They spent 3 days in the Deadlands, long enough for any pursuit to give up, Riker said, long enough for Alara to learn the rhythms of this terrible place, when the voices were strongest, which paths were truly safe, how to ignore the shapes that moved just beyond the firelight. On the third night, Riker disappeared for several hours. He returned after dark, his expression troubled. What's wrong? Alara asked. I scouted the southern border. There are wolves camped there, lots of them. Alara's stomach dropped. Kael's? No, worse. Riker crouched by the fire. They're carrying Varen colors. Why would the Varen pack be here? I don't know, but they're blocking our exit route south. He ran a hand through his hair. We're trapped. There has to be another way out. There is. North, through the worst part of the Deadlands. It's dangerous, more corrupted than here. The safe paths are less stable, but it's our only option. Then we go north. Riker looked at her. You sure? Once we're in deep Deadlands territory, there's no turning back. We make a mistake, we die. Better than being dragged back to Silver Ridge. Fair point. They left at first light, following paths that grew increasingly unstable. The ground felt wrong under Alara's feet, sometimes solid, sometimes giving way like she was walking on skin stretched too thin. The air grew thicker, harder to breathe, and the voices got worse. Now they came in packs, overlapping, screaming and pleading and promising. Alara heard Kael again, this time begging forgiveness. Heard Sarah Varen laughing. Heard wolves she'd never met calling her weak, pathetic, unwanted. She gritted her teeth and kept walking. They were 3 hours into the deep Deadlands when they heard the howl behind them. Not one wolf, many, a hunting pack, and they were close. Run, Riker said. They ran. The safe path disappeared under their feet as they fled, leaving them scrambling over twisted ground that tried to trip them with every step. Behind them, the howls grew closer. Alara risked a glance back and saw them. Wolves in shifted form, their eyes gleaming in the gray light. Silver Ridge wolves. Kael's personal guard. They're insane, Alara gasped. Coming into the Deadlands. They're desperate. Riker grabbed her hand, pulling her over a fallen log. Kael must have offered them something worth dying for. The ground opened up ahead. A ravine, maybe 30 feet across, with nothing but darkness at the bottom. We have to jump, Riker said. That's impossible. It's jump or fight, and there's too many to fight. He squeezed her hand. Trust me? Alara looked at the ravine, at the wolves closing in behind them, at Riker's face, hard with determination, and something else, something that looked like he actually cared whether she lived or died. Yes, she said. They ran for the edge together, hands locked, and jumped. For a moment, Alara felt weightless, free, like she was flying instead of falling. Then they hit the other side. Riker landed cleanly, rolling to absorb the impact and pulling Alara with him. They came up running, not stopping to see if the wolves followed. Behind them, she heard snarls of frustration, the sound of shifting, heated arguments about whether to attempt the jump. She didn't wait to see who won the argument. They ran until Alara's lungs burned and her legs screamed. Ran until the Deadlands started to change again, the gray trees giving way to something that looked almost normal. Ran until Riker finally slowed, checking their surroundings with practiced caution. "I think we lost them," he said, breathing hard. Alara bent over, hands on her knees, trying not to throw up. "Where are we?" "Northern border of the Deadlands. Past this is rogue territory, but not the kind Kael's wolves will follow us into." "Why not?" "Because it's controlled by the Iron Ridge Pack, and their alpha doesn't take kindly to Silver Ridge wolves trespassing." "Why would they help us?" Riker's smile was sharp. "They won't help us. But they hate Kael Thorn, which amounts to the same thing." They crossed the border as the sun began to set. The land changed immediately, still wild, but alive in a way the Deadlands weren't. Birds called from the trees. The earth smelled like earth again instead of ash and death. They'd made it. Alara wanted to collapse right there, to sleep for a week and forget the last 3 days had happened. But Riker kept them moving, pushing deeper into Iron Ridge territory until they found a stream where they could finally stop. Alara dropped her bag and sank to her knees, splashing water on her face. It was cold and clean, and the best thing she'd ever felt. "We made it," she said, half laughing, half crying. "We actually made it." "Don't celebrate yet." Riker was scanning the tree line. "We're in Iron Ridge territory without permission. That's its own kind of dangerous." As if summoned by his words, wolves emerged from the forest. 10 of them, all in human form, all armed. They moved with the coordinated precision of trained pack fighters. And at their center was an alpha. He was tall as Riker, with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes like chips of amber. Power rolled off him in waves, the kind of raw dominance that made Alara's wolf instinct scream to submit. "Riker Dane," the alpha said, his voice carrying effortless authority. "I heard you were dead." "People keep saying that." Riker didn't lower his weapon, but he didn't raise it either. "Hello, Dante." "Still making trouble, I see." The alpha, Dante, looked at Alara. "And you've brought company. How unexpected." "We need passage through your territory," Riker said. "We'll be gone by morning." "Will you?" Dante tilted his head. "I'm curious why 2 wolves would brave the Deadlands to reach my territory. Especially when one of them is Alara Voss, former Luna of Silver Ridge." Alara's heart stopped. "How do you know who I am?" "Because Kael Thorn sent a messenger 3 days ago." Dante's smile was cold. "He's offering a substantial reward for your safe return. Says you're not well, that you fled in a moment of confusion and need to come home." "That's a lie." "I assumed as much. Kael Thorn has never been a particularly skilled liar." Dante took a step closer. "What I find interesting is that he's this desperate to get you back. Desperate enough to send his personal guard into the Deadlands. Desperate enough to offer me, his known enemy, an alliance if I return you." "What are you going to do?" Alara asked, her hand moving to her knife. Dante looked at her for a long moment. Then he started to laugh. "Return you to Kael Thorn? Please. I wouldn't give that ambitious fool the satisfaction." His amber eyes gleamed. "No, I have a better idea. You want to hurt the Alpha, who discarded you? Want to make him understand exactly what he threw away? What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting," Dante said, "that you stay in Iron Ridge, as my guest, my protected guest." He looked at Riker. "Both of you." Riker tensed. Why would you do that? Because nothing would infuriate Kael Thorn more than knowing his former Luna found sanctuary with his greatest rival. And because, Dante's smile turned sharp, I think Alara Voss might be the key to something I've been planning for a very long time. "What's that?" Alara asked, though part of her already knew. Dante's answer was simple, devastating, and changed everything. War. The words settled over them like frost. "War," Alara repeated, her voice carefully flat. "You want to use me to start a war." "Not start, finish." Dante's amber eyes never left her face. Kael Thorn has been pushing boundaries for years, taking hunting grounds that weren't his, cutting trade deals that undermine neighboring packs. He's been building toward expansion, and the Varen Alliance just gave him the resources to make it happen. He paused. Unless someone stops him first. And I'm supposed to be your excuse? Alara's hand tightened on her knife. Your justification for attacking Silver Ridge? No. Dante's voice was sharp. You're supposed to be a reminder that Kyle Thorne destroys everything he touches. That he's not the strong, decisive leader he pretends to be. He's a coward who throws away loyalty the moment it becomes inconvenient. That's not... Alara stopped herself. Because it was true, wasn't it? All of it. Think about it, Dante continued, his voice dropping to something almost gentle. You spent 6 years building Silver Ridge. 6 years earning the respect of wolves who'd never met you before. Then Kyle erased you like you'd never existed. Don't you want him to face consequences for that? Consequences aren't the same as war. Sometimes they are. Dante glanced at his wolves, who still stood in formation around them. I'm not asking you to fight. I'm offering you protection, resources, a place to rebuild. And yes, I'm asking you to let your presence here send a message. That Iron Ridge protects what Silver Ridge discards. Riker stepped forward, his expression hard. And when Kyle comes for her anyway, because you know he will, then he'll be attacking Iron Ridge territory to reclaim someone who doesn't belong to him anymore. Dante's smile was cold. That's the war I'm ready for. The question is whether you're ready to be part of it. Alara looked at Riker. His jaw was tight, gray eyes stormy with things he wasn't saying. He'd risked everything to get her out of the Deadlands, to keep her safe from Kael's scouts. Now Dante was asking her to walk straight into another kind of danger, the kind wrapped in protection and promises and the very real possibility of violence. I need to think, Alara said. Of course. Dante gestured to his wolves. Mara will show you to guest quarters. Take your time. Consider your options. But understand this. Kyle knows you're in my territory now. He tracked you to the Deadlands border. Every moment you delay is a moment he uses to plan his next move. That sounds like a threat. It's a fact. Dante's expression didn't change. I'm offering you a choice, Ilara Voss. Stay under my protection and make Kale face what he's done. Or leave and spend the rest of your life running from an alpha who clearly won't let you go. A female wolf stepped forward. Mara, presumably. She was compact and muscular, with short dark hair and eyes that assessed Alara with professional distance. This way. Alara followed her, Riker close behind. As they walked through Iron Ridge territory, she couldn't help but notice the differences from Silver Ridge. The packhouse was smaller, more fortified. Wolves moved with military precision instead of comfortable routine. Everything felt sharper here, more dangerous. The guest quarters were surprisingly comfortable. 2 rooms connected by a shared sitting area, both with actual beds and running water. Luxury compared to weeks in the wildlands. Food will be brought in an hour, Mara said. Don't leave these rooms without an escort, for your safety. Are we prisoners? Riker asked. You're guests who haven't decided if they're allies. Mara's smile was thin. There's a difference. Figure out which one you want to be. She left, locking the door behind her with a soft click that was somehow louder than a slam. Alara sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. Every muscle in her body ached. The wound on her arm throbbed. She was filthy, hungry, and so tired of running she could barely think straight. You can't seriously be considering this, Riker said. Why not? Because Dante doesn't help people out of the goodness of his heart. He wants something from you. Something that ends with Kael's territory in ruins and you caught in the middle. Maybe that's exactly what I want. The words came out sharper than Alara intended. Maybe I'm tired of being the reasonable one, the one who leaves quietly so everyone else can be comfortable. Riker sat down across from her. This isn't about being reasonable. It's about survival. You start a war between 2 alphas, you don't get to control how it ends. I'm not starting anything. Kale started this when he chose Sarah over me, when he sent scouts into the wildlands to drag me back like property. When he... Her voice broke. When he made me feel like I was nothing. You're not nothing. Then why does it feel like I am? Alara pressed her hands to her face. 6 years, Riker. 6 years of being Luna, of serving that pack, of standing beside an alpha who was supposed to stand beside me, and none of it mattered. He replaced me in 3 days. Riker was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. You want to know what I think? Do I have a choice? I think Kyle made the biggest mistake of his life, and he knows it. I think that's why he's hunting you. Not because he wants you back, but because you're proof that he failed. That his precious political alliance cost him something real. Riker leaned forward. But I also think Dante is using that. Using you. And the second you're not useful anymore, he'll throw you away just like Kyle did. Or maybe he'll actually keep his word. You believe that? I don't know what I believe anymore. Alara stood, pacing to the window. Iron Ridge territory spread out below. Wolves training in the courtyard. Guards patrolling the perimeter. An organized pack ready for war. But I know I'm tired of hiding, tired of running. If Dante wants to use my presence to challenge Kyle, then fine. Let Kale come. Let him see what he threw away. And if people die? The question hit like a punch. Alara turned to face Riker. They're already dying. Kale's expansion isn't peaceful. You said so yourself. He takes hunting grounds, undermines trade, pushes until someone pushes back. At least this way the fight is on our terms. Our terms? Or Dante's? Does it matter? Yes. Riker stood, crossing to her. It matters because you're better than this. Better than letting someone else use your pain as a weapon. Maybe I don't want to be better. Alar's voice was quiet, dangerous. Maybe I just want to hurt him the way he hurt me. They stared at each other. The air between them felt charged, electric with things neither of them was saying. Alara? A knock interrupted whatever Riker was about to say. Mara entered without waiting for an answer, carrying a tray of food and a sealed envelope. Eat, she said, setting the tray down. And this came for you. Messenger bird from Silver Ridge. Alara's stomach dropped. Kale? Read it and find out. Mara left as quickly as she'd come. Alara stared at the envelope like it might bite her. Silver Ridge's seal, Kyle's seal, pressed into dark wax. Her hands shook as she broke it open. The letter was short, written in Kyle's precise handwriting, the same hand that had signed their bonding certificate 6 years ago. Alara, I know you're in Iron Ridge territory. I know Dante has offered you sanctuary. I'm asking you, begging you, not to accept. What happened between us was complicated. Political. I made choices I thought were necessary for Silver Ridge's survival. But I never meant to hurt you, never wanted you to feel discarded. Come back. We'll talk. Figure this out like the partners we've always been. If you stay with Dante, you're choosing war. Not just between our packs, but between everything we built together. Don't let him use you to destroy what we spent 6 years creating. Please, Alara, come home. Kay. Alara read it twice. Then she laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that made Riker's eyes narrow. What does it say? He wants me to come back. She handed him the letter. Says he never meant to hurt me, that Dante is using me, that I'm choosing war by staying here. Riker scanned the letter, his expression darkening. He doesn't mention Sarah. No, doesn't mention the alliance either. Just asks me to come home like the last 2 months never happened. What are you going to do? Alara took the letter back, staring at Kael's handwriting. Once, that handwriting had meant safety, partnership, a future they were building together. Now it just looked like lies written in ink. I'm going to answer him, she said. She found paper and pen in the writing desk by the window, sat down and wrote without thinking, letting the words flow straight from the anger burning in her chest. Kael, you're right about one thing. Dante is using me, but at least he's honest about it. You want to talk about partners? Partners don't get replaced in 3-day announcements. Partners don't send scouts into the wildlands to drag each other back like runaway property. And partners definitely don't write letters pretending the last 2 months didn't happen just because it's politically convenient to have their old Luna back. I'm not coming back to Silver Ridge. Not now. Not ever. And if that choice means war, maybe it's the war you deserve. She sealed it before she could second-guess herself, called for Mara, and handed over the letter. Send this to Silver Ridge. Make sure Kael gets it personally. Mara's expression was carefully neutral. Dante will want to know what you wrote. Tell him I made my choice. After Mara left, Alara turned to find Riker watching her with an expression she couldn't read. So we're doing this, he said. We? You think I'm leaving you here alone? Riker's smile was grim. I've already lost one pack. I'll be damned if I lose you too. Something warm and terrifying unfurled in Alara's chest. You barely know me. I know enough. He crossed to her, stopping close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. I know you're stronger than Kael ever deserved. I know you survived the Deadlands and Scouts and 2 months in the Wild Lands without breaking. And I know that whatever happens next, I want to stand beside you through it. That's insane. Probably. His hand came up, careful, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed his thumb across her cheek. But I've been insane for 3 years. Might as well have company. Alara didn't know who moved first, didn't know if it was grief or gratitude or just the desperate need to feel something other than anger. But suddenly they were kissing, fierce and messy, and nothing like the careful affection she'd shared with Kael. This felt like drowning and breathing at the same time. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Riker rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea, he said. The worst. We should stop. Probably. Neither of them moved. The next morning, Dante summoned them to his strategy room. It was a large space dominated by a table covered in maps, packed territories marked in different colors, trade routes drawn in careful lines. Notations in a language Alara didn't recognize scattered across the margins. I received word that you sent a letter to Kael, Dante said without preamble. Care to share what it said? I told him I wasn't coming back. And? And that if he wants war, he can have it. Dante's smile was sharp with approval. Good. Then let's talk strategy. He gestured to the map. Silver Ridge territory was marked in dark blue, Iron Ridge in gray. Between them, several smaller territories formed a buffer zone. Kael's alliance with the Varen Pact gives him access to northern trade routes and military support, Dante explained, but it also stretches his resources thin. He's trying to hold 3 territories with the forces of 1. That's his weakness. What's yours? Alara asked. Dante laughed. Direct, I like that. My weakness is that half the packs in this region see me as an aggressor. They won't openly support Silver Ridge, but they won't support me either, which means any conflict stays between our territories unless I can change the narrative. And that's where I come in. Exactly. Dante's finger traced a line between territories. Kael threw away his Luna for political gain. That makes him look unstable, cruel, the kind of alpha who values power over loyalty. If I position Iron Ridge as the pack that protects what Silver Ridge destroys, suddenly I'm not the aggressor. I'm the defender. Of what? Riker's voice was hard. Alara's not a symbol you can plant on a battlefield. No, she's better than that. Dante looked at Alara. She's proof that Kael Thorne can't be trusted to protect his own. And in a world where pack bonds are everything, that's a weapon more powerful than any army. You want to parade me around, Alara said slowly. Show the other packs that I chose Iron Ridge over Silver Ridge. I want to give you a platform, Dante corrected. A chance to tell your story, to show everyone who Kael really is when the politics get stripped away. And if I refuse, then you're still welcome to stay as a guest, but you'll be wasting an opportunity to make Kael face consequences for what he did. Alara looked at the map, at Silver Ridge territory that had been her home for 6 years, at the small notation marking the pack house where she'd lived and loved and lost everything. What exactly are you asking me to do? There's a regional council meeting in 3 weeks, Dante said. All the major packs send representatives. It's neutral ground. No one can attack or challenge without violating ancient law. Kael will be there. So will Sarah and Alpha Varen. He paused. I want you to attend as my guest, as a wolf under Iron Ridge protection. Let them see you're not broken, not hiding, not the discarded Luna Kael's been telling everyone about. He's been talking about me? Of course. His story is that you left because you couldn't handle the pressure of leadership changes, that you're unstable, irrational. He's been painting himself as the victim, the alpha whose mate abandoned him in his hour of need. Fury flooded through Alara, hot and sharp. That's not... I know. Everyone with half a brain knows. But rumors and reality are different things. This is your chance to control the narrative. Dante's expression softened slightly. I won't force you. This only works if you choose it. But think about what it would mean, walking into that council chamber with your head high, showing every alpha there that Cale Thorne's version of events is a lie. Alara looked at Riker. He was watching her carefully, his expression neutral, but his eyes saying everything. This is dangerous. This is exactly what Dante wants. But it's also your choice. I'll do it, Alara said. Dante's smile was victorious. Excellent. We have 3 weeks to prepare you. Prepare turned out to be an understatement. Dante assigned her a team, Mara to train her in Iron Ridge protocols, a diplomatic advisor named Silas to coach her on council politics, even a stylist who insisted Alara needed to look like a Luna who'd chosen strength over sentiment. You can't show up looking like you've been living in the wild lands, the stylist, a sharp-eyed wolf named Vera, said bluntly. You need to look like you've been thriving. I have been living in the wild lands. Then we fake it. Vera held up 2 dresses. Politics is theater. You need a costume. The training was brutal. Silas drilled her on pack hierarchies, ancient protocols, the careful dance of saying everything while revealing nothing. Mara taught her how to move through formal events, where to stand, who to acknowledge, how to make an entrance that commanded respect instead of pity. And every night, Riker was there, not hovering, not trying to protect her from choices that were hers to make, just present, steady. You don't have to do this, he said one evening as they sat on the balcony of her quarters. You can still change your mind. I know. But you won't. No. Alara leaned against the railing, looking out at Iron Ridge territory. I spent 6 years being the Luna everyone expected. Quiet, supportive, never making waves. And it got me nowhere. Maybe it's time to make some waves. Waves or tsunamis? Dealer's choice. Riker laughed, the sound rough but genuine. They'd been dancing around each other for weeks, kisses that started and stopped, touches that meant too much to be casual, but not enough to be defined. Alara knew she was falling for him, knew it was too soon, too complicated, too everything, didn't care. When this is over, Riker said quietly, when the council meeting is done and Kael's faced whatever consequences are coming, what then? I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. Maybe you should. Maybe I'm tired of planning. Alara turned to face him. For 6 years I planned how to be a good Luna, how to support Kael's decisions, how to make Silver Ridge stronger, and none of it mattered. So maybe I'm done planning. Maybe I just want to exist and see what happens. That's not like you. How would you know? You've known me for 2 months. I know you're someone who thinks 3 steps ahead, who measures consequences before making choices. Riker moved closer. This version of you, the one who jumps first and thinks later, that's not who you are. That's who you're trying to be because you're hurt. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. But I know you'll regret it if you let Dante use you to start something you can't finish. Maybe. Alara reached up, tangling her fingers in his hair. Or maybe I'll finally do something that's entirely mine. Not Kael's, not Silver Ridge's, mine. This time when they kissed, it wasn't desperate. It was deliberate. A choice instead of a reaction. And when Riker lifted her, carrying her back inside, Alara didn't think about consequences or plans or anything except the feeling of being wanted by someone who saw her as more than a political convenience. The 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and strategy. Dante was thorough, making sure Alara understood every angle of what was about to happen. Kael would be there with Sarah. The Varen pack would have their delegation. Every major alpha in the region would be watching to see how this played out. You're the wild card, Dante explained the night before they left for the council grounds. No one knows what you're going to do. That uncertainty is power. Use it. What if I don't want power? What if I just want to tell the truth? The truth is power, especially when it makes powerful people uncomfortable. The council grounds were neutral territory, an ancient stone amphitheater built by wolves long dead, maintained by tradition and respect for the old laws. No violence was permitted here, no challenges issued. It was sacred ground where disputes were meant to be resolved with words instead of claws. Alara arrived with Dante's full entourage. Mara at her left, Riker at her right, a dozen Iron Ridge wolves forming a protective circle. She wore the dress Vera had chosen. Deep forest green, elegant but not ostentatious, cut to show strength instead of submission. She looked like a Luna, felt like a weapon. The amphitheater was already filling with wolves from different packs. She recognized some from her years at Silver Ridge, alphas who'd visited, betas who'd negotiated trade agreements. They stared as she entered, whispers spreading like wildfire. Then Kyle walked in. He was with Sarah, just like she'd expected. The Varen heiress looked perfect. Pale blue dress, hair styled in intricate braids, every inch the political alliance she represented. Kyle looked the same as always, strong, confident, the alpha everyone believed in. Until his eyes found Alara. She watched the recognition hit him. Watched his expression cycle through shock, anger, something that might have been pain. He started toward her, but Alpha Varen caught his arm, saying something sharp and quiet. Kale stopped, turned back, but his eyes never left her. Good, Alara thought. Let him stare. Let him see exactly what he threw away. The council session began with standard business, territory disputes, trade agreements, formal acknowledgments of new leadership. Alara sat with Iron Ridge's delegation, silent, letting her presence speak for itself. Then Dante stood. I have a matter to bring before the council, he said, his voice carrying easily through the amphitheater. Regarding the treatment of bonded mates and the sanctity of pack loyalty. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Kyle's expression went very still. 3 months ago, Dante continued, Alpha Kale Thorn of Silver Ridge publicly severed his bond with his Luna, Alara Voss, in order to secure a political alliance with the Varen pack. This action, while within his rights as Alpha, raises questions about the nature of pack bonds and whether political expediency should override sacred commitments. This is not council business, Kyle said, his voice tight. What happens within Silver Ridge is Silver Ridge's concern. Normally I'd agree, but when a Luna is forced out of her own territory with no protection, no resources, and no recourse, that becomes everyone's concern. Dante gestured to Alara. Alara Voss now stands under Iron Ridge protection. She has asked to speak about her experience. I believe the council should hear her. Every eye in the amphitheater turned to Alara. She stood slowly, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. This was it. The moment everything changed. My name is Alara Voss, she began, and was surprised by how steady her voice sounded. For 6 years, I served as Luna of Silver Ridge. I negotiated disputes, managed resources, built relationships with every family in that territory. I stood beside Alpha Kale Thorn through every challenge, every decision, every crisis. She looked directly at Kyle. And when he needed a stronger alliance, he erased me, not through challenge or mutual agreement, but through a public announcement that I had no warning about and no say in. I was told to step aside gracefully, to accept a settlement and disappear, to make his political marriage convenient by removing myself from the equation. The amphitheater was dead silent. I'm not here to argue whether Kyle had the right to do this. He's Alpha. He has every right to make decisions for his pack. But I'm here to say that what he did wasn't leadership. It was cowardice. And I'm here to make sure every Alpha in this room understands that I didn't leave Silver Ridge because I was weak or unstable or unable to handle leadership changes. Her voice grew stronger, harder. I left because I refused to be treated like property. Refused to accept that 6 years of loyalty meant nothing compared to 3 days of political opportunity. And I'm standing here today to prove that the discarded Luna Kyle's been describing doesn't exist. I'm not broken. I'm not hiding. And I'm not going away. She sat down. The silence stretched. Then someone started clapping, slow, deliberate. Other wolves joined in until the applause filled the amphitheater. Kyle looked like he'd been struck. Sarah's perfect composure had cracked, her expression confused and angry. Alpha Varen was whispering furiously to his daughter, damage control already in motion. But Alara didn't care about any of them. She'd told her truth, made them listen. And for the first time since Kyle's announcement, she felt like herself again. Dante leaned over, his voice pitched for her ears only. Well done. Alara didn't answer. She was watching Kyle, watching the realization spread across his face that he'd lost. Not politically, that battle was still brewing, but the narrative he'd been building, the story that painted him as the victim and her as the problem. That was done. She'd won. The applause died slowly, but the damage was done. Alara could see it in the faces around the amphitheater. Alphas and betas who'd heard Kyle's version of events were now looking at him differently. Questions in their eyes. Doubt.
the kind that couldn't be erased with smooth words or political maneuvering. The council leader, an ancient wolf named Torin, who'd presided over these meetings for 40 years, raised his hand for silence.
The council acknowledges Alara Voss's testimony, he said, his voice gravelly with age. Alpha Thorn, do you wish to respond? Kale stood slowly. Alara watched him gather himself, watched the alpha mask slide back into place. When he spoke, his voice was controlled, reasonable.
I don't dispute that my decision hurt Alara. That was never my intention. He looked around the amphitheater, making eye contact with other alphas. But leadership requires difficult choices. The Varen Alliance wasn't about replacing one Luna with another. It was about securing Silver Ridge's future against very real threats. By throwing away a 6-year bond, someone called from the crowd.
By prioritizing the survival of hundreds of wolves over the comfort of 2. Kale's jaw tightened. I made the choice I believed was right for my pack. If that makes me a coward in some eyes, so be it. I'll accept that judgment, but I won't apologize for protecting my territory. Murmurs of agreement from some quarters, nods from alphas who understood the weight of impossible decisions. Alara felt her victory slipping. Then Riker stood. I have a question for Alpha Thorn, he said, and the amphitheater fell silent. Riker Dane was a ghost. Everyone knew the story of the Northern Pack that had been destroyed. Hearing him speak in council was like hearing the dead testify. Kael's eyes narrowed. Ask, if the Varen Alliance was truly about protecting Silver Ridge, why did you send armed scouts into the wildlands to hunt down your former Luna? Why offer rewards for her capture? Why pursue her through the Deadlands themselves? Riker's voice was cold, precise. Those aren't the actions of an alpha who's moved on for his pack's sake. Those are the actions of someone who can't accept that his property walked away. The amphitheater erupted. Kale's face went white, then red. I sent scouts to make sure she was safe. You sent hunters. Riker cut him off. I was there when they attacked us. I heard them say you wanted her returned by any means necessary. That's not concern. That's control. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. Riker's voice dropped, dangerous. I know what it looks like when an alpha can't admit he made a mistake. When he'd rather burn the world down than face the fact that he destroyed something irreplaceable. Enough! Torin's voice cracked like a whip. Alpha Thorn, is this true? Did you send wolves into neutral territories to forcibly retrieve Alara Voss? Kale opened his mouth, closed it. The calculation was visible in his eyes. Deny and be called a liar by witnesses, or admit and confirm everything Alara had said about being treated like property. I sent scouts, he said finally, to offer Alara safe passage back to Silver Ridge. If they overstepped their authority, they didn't overstep. Alara stood again, her voice ringing clear. They did exactly what you told them to do. Hunt me down. Bring me back. Because you couldn't stand that I chose to leave instead of waiting for you to grant me permission. That's not... It is. She walked down the steps, moving closer to where Kael stood, close enough to see the fury and frustration, and something else, something that looked almost like desperation, warring in his expression. You want to know the real reason you sent those scouts? It wasn't about my safety. It was because my absence made you look weak, made people question your judgment, and you couldn't have that. You're twisting this. I'm telling the truth. Alara's voice was steel. The truth you've been trying to bury under political rhetoric and convenient excuses. You didn't choose Sarah because you had to. You chose her because you wanted what she represented, power, connections, expansion, and you thought I'd just accept being erased because that was easier than facing what you'd done. Kale stared at her, and for just a moment the mask cracked completely. She saw pain there, real pain, but also pride, the kind of pride that would never admit fault. I did what I had to do, he said quietly. No, you did what you wanted to do. There's a difference. Sarah chose that moment to stand, her voice cutting through the tension. This is ridiculous. Alara, you're making a spectacle of yourself. Whatever happened between you and Kael is personal. It has no place in council business. Alara turned to face her, this woman who'd accepted another's bond without question, who'd stood beside Kael like Alara had never existed. You're right, Alara said. It is personal, but it became council business the moment Kael sent armed wolves into neutral territories.
The moment he tried to use his position to force me back to a life I'd chosen to leave. She looked at Alpha Varen, who was watching with carefully neutral expression. Tell me, Alpha Varen, if one of your wolves left the pack, would you hunt them through the Deadlands? Would you offer rewards for their capture? Varen's expression didn't change. If I believed they were in danger, that's not what I asked. The old Alpha studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. No, I wouldn't, because a wolf who chooses to leave has that right, even a Luna. The statement hung in the air like a condemnation. Varen had just publicly undermined his own alliance, admitting that Kael's actions had crossed a line. Kael rounded on him. You agreed this alliance was necessary. I agreed to a political union that strengthened both our packs. I didn't agree to help you hunt down your ex-mate like she was a runaway asset. Varen's voice was cold. There's a difference, Alpha Thorn. And right now, that difference is making me reconsider whether Silver Ridge is the kind of territory I want my daughter bonding into. Sarah's face went pale. Father, we'll discuss this later. Varen stood, his wolves rising with him. Council, I believe we've heard enough. The matter of Alara Voss's departure from Silver Ridge is clearly more complicated than initially presented. I move that we table any decisions regarding territorial alliances until a full investigation can be conducted. Seconded, another Alpha called. Torin nodded gravely. Motion carries. This council is adjourned. Chaos erupted. Wolves surged to their feet, everyone talking at once. Alara felt Riker's hand on her back, steady and grounding, as Dante's wolves formed a protective circle around them. Through the crowd, she saw Kael standing alone. Sarah had moved away, talking urgently with her father. The Silver Ridge delegation looked confused, uncertain, and Kael just stared at Alara with an expression she couldn't read. We need to leave, Mara said urgently, before this turns into something worse. They moved as a unit, pushing through the crowd toward the exit. Wolves stepped aside for them, some with respect, some with curiosity, a few with barely concealed hostility. Alara kept her head high, her shoulders back. She'd won. Actually won. They were almost to the doors when someone grabbed her arm. Alara, wait! It was Marcus. Silver Ridge's beta looked exhausted, his usual composure frayed at the edges. Please, just give me 1 minute. Riker tensed, but Alara nodded. It's okay. Marcus pulled her aside, away from the crowd but still visible. I don't even know what that was. The truth. It was a bomb. Marcus ran his hand through his hair. Do you have any idea what you just did? The Varen Alliance is falling apart. Half the pack is questioning Kael's leadership, and the other Alphas, they're circling like sharks. Good. Good? Marcus's voice rose. Alara, Silver Ridge could collapse. Everything we built. Everything you built on my erasure, you mean? She pulled her arm free. I'm sorry, Marcus. I know this is hard for you. But I'm not responsible for cleaning up Kael's mistakes anymore. He wants to talk to you. No. Alara? No. She looked Marcus in the eye. I spent 6 years making myself smaller so Kael could feel bigger. I'm done. If he wants to fix this mess, he can start by actually leading his pack instead of blaming everyone else for his choices. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, finally nodded. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For not standing up for you when it mattered. I know. Alara's voice softened slightly. But sorry doesn't change what happened. She walked away, rejoining Dante's group. They made it outside without further incident, though she could feel eyes on her back the whole way. The journey back to Iron Ridge was quiet. Alara sat in the transport vehicle, watching the landscape blur past, trying to process everything that had happened. She'd confronted Kael, told her truth in front of every major Alpha in the region, watched the alliance he'd sacrificed her for begin to crumble. She should feel triumphant, vindicated. Instead, she just felt tired. You okay? Riker asked quietly, sitting beside her. I don't know. Alara leaned her head against his shoulder. Thought winning would feel different. How's it feel? Empty. Like I just burned down a building I used to live in. Necessary, maybe, but still destruction. Riker was quiet for a moment. You didn't burn anything down. Kael did that himself. You just made sure everyone could see the flames. Is that better? It's honest.
When they arrived back at Iron Ridge, Dante was waiting in his study. He looked pleased, more than pleased, triumphant. "You were perfect," he said as soon as Alara entered. "Better than I could have planned. The other alphas are already reaching out, asking questions about Iron Ridge's position, our territorial plans. Kael's support is bleeding away faster than he can contain it." "Good." Alara sank into a chair. "So what happens now?" "Now, we press the advantage. Schedule formal meetings with the alphas who are wavering. Show them that Iron Ridge offers stability that Silver Ridge can't match." Dante poured 3 glasses of whiskey, handing them to Alara and Riker. "Within a month, Kael will be so politically isolated he'll have no choice but to step down or face a formal challenge." "And then what? You take over Silver Ridge?"
Someone will. Whether it's me or another alpha who sees the opportunity, Silver Ridge is wounded. It's only a matter of time before someone claims it. Alara stared at her glass. This was what she'd wanted, wasn't it? To make Kael face consequences. To prove she wasn't the weak, unstable Luna he'd painted her as. So why did it feel like she'd just signed a death warrant? "I need air," she said, standing.
Outside, the night was cold and clear. Alara walked through Iron Ridge territory, past training grounds and guard posts, until she found a quiet overlook that showed the forest stretching endlessly in every direction. Riker found her there an hour later. "Dante's planning a victory feast," he said, settling beside her on the stone bench. "You're the guest of honor." "I don't feel victorious." "No? I feel like I just helped start a war. And yeah, Kael deserves to face consequences for what he did. But all those wolves in Silver Ridge, the families I knew, the lives I was part of, they're going to suffer too. Because their alpha made a choice that I couldn't live with. That's not your fault, isn't it?" Alara turned to look at him. "I could have stayed quiet, disappeared into the wildlands like Kael wanted, let him have his alliance and his new Luna without making waves, but I chose to fight back, chose to make him pay. And now people are going to get hurt because of that choice." "People were going to get hurt either way." Riker's voice was gentle. "Kael's expansion plans, his alliance with Varen, that was always going to lead to conflict. You didn't create that. You just exposed what was already there. Dante's going to use this to destroy Silver Ridge completely. Take the territory, absorb the wolves who survive, eliminate Kael as a rival. Probably. And I helped him." "Yes." Riker didn't try to soften it. "You did. The question is whether you can live with that." Alara stood, pacing to the edge of the overlook. Could she live with it, with knowing her pain had become a weapon that might destroy an entire pack? "What would you do?" she asked. "If you were me." Riker was quiet for a long time. "I'd ask myself what I actually want. Not what Dante wants, not what Kael deserves. What you want. For yourself. For your future." "I don't know anymore." "Then figure it out. Because right now, you're letting other people write your story again. First it was Kael, now it's Dante. At some point, Alara, you need to decide who you're going to be when no one else is making choices for you." The words hit like a slap. Because he was right. She'd left Silver Ridge to escape being defined by Kael's decisions. But had she just traded one alpha's control for another's? "I need to think," she said. "I'll be here when you're done." Alara spent the next 3 days avoiding everyone. She took long walks through Iron Ridge territory, thinking, remembering, trying to separate what she wanted from what she thought she should want. She'd wanted Kael to pay. That part was done. But did she want Silver Ridge destroyed? Did she want to be the reason families lost their homes, wolves lost their pack? No. That had never been the goal. On the 4th day, she made her decision. She found Dante in his study, reviewing reports from scouts monitoring Silver Ridge's borders. "I'm leaving," she said without preamble. Dante looked up, surprised. "Leaving? Now? When we're on the verge of destroying an entire pack because their alpha made a mistake?" Alara sat down across from him. "I'm grateful for your protection, for giving me a platform to tell my truth, but I won't be part of taking down Silver Ridge." "They would have taken you down without a second thought." "Kael would have. The pack didn't choose that. They just followed their alpha, like wolves do." She leaned forward. "I won't punish them for his choices. That makes me just as bad as he is." Dante studied her for a long moment. "You're serious." "Completely. You know Kael won't forgive you for what happened at the council. He'll see you as a threat as long as you're alive.
Then I'll deal with that. But I'll do it on my terms, not yours. Where will you go?
Alara smiled. I don't know yet. Somewhere I can figure out who I am when I'm not someone's Luna or someone's
Political weapon. Somewhere I can just be Alara. That's not much of a plan. It's better than being part of something I don't believe in. Dante leaned back in his chair. You're making a mistake. Walking away from protection, from power, from the chance to make Kael truly pay for what he did.
Maybe, but it's my mistake to make.
Alara stood. Thank you for everything, truly. But this isn't my fight. She left before he could argue further. Riker was waiting in her quarters, already packing. She stopped in the doorway, surprised. How did you know? Because I know you. He folded a shirt with unnecessary precision. You were never going to let Dante use you to start a war. I was just waiting for you to realize it. You're coming with me? If you'll have me. Riker, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. He crossed to her, taking her hands. I want to. I spent 3 years hiding in the wildlands, punishing myself for not saving my pack. Maybe it's time I stop running from what I lost and start building something new. We don't even know where we're going. Does it matter?
Alara looked at him. This man who'd saved her, taught her, stood beside her through everything, who'd never tried to control her or use her or make her smaller, who'd just been there, steady and real and honest. No, she said, it doesn't. They left Iron Ridge at dawn, slipping out before anyone could try to stop them. Traveled light, taking only what they could carry. Heading east toward territories neither of them knew. They'd been walking for 2 days when they ran into the messenger. He was young, barely out of adolescence, wearing Silver Ridge colors. He stumbled when he saw Alara, nearly dropping the sealed letter he carried. Alara Voss. I've been looking for you. Why? Alpha Thorn sent me. He wants to meet with you. Alone. Says it's important. Alara and Riker exchanged glances. Tell him no, Alara said. Please. The messenger's voice cracked. He said to tell you the pack is falling apart, that he needs to talk to you before it's too late. That's not my problem. He also said to tell you he was wrong about everything. The word stopped Alara cold. Kael admitting he was wrong? That wasn't something she'd ever expected to hear. It's a trap, Riker said quietly. Maybe. Alara looked at the messenger. Where does he want to meet? The clearing at Silver Ridge's eastern border, tomorrow at sunset. He'll come alone. After the messenger left, Riker rounded on her. You can't seriously be considering this. I have to. Why? So he can try one more time to manipulate you into coming back? Into forgiving him and making this all go away? No, so I can get closure. Alara met his eyes. I need to hear what he has to say. Need to look him in the face one more time and know that I made the right choice. Otherwise, I'll always wonder. And if it is a trap, then you'll be close by to pull me out of it. Riker looked like he wanted to argue further. Instead, he just sighed. If you die, I'm going to be really annoyed. Noted. The clearing was empty when Alara arrived the next evening. She stood in the center, alone as Kael had requested, while Riker watched from the tree line. Waiting. Kael appeared just as the sun touched the horizon. He looked different, older somehow, like the last few weeks had aged him years. He stopped 10 feet away, hands visible, no weapons. You came, he said. You said you had something important to say. I did. I do. Kael ran a hand through his hair, that same gesture of frustration she'd seen 1,000 times. The alliance with the Varen pack is over. Alpha Varen withdrew his support after the council meeting, said he couldn't trust an Alpha who valued power over pack bonds. I'm sorry. And surprisingly, she meant it. Are you? You're the one who destroyed it. No. You destroyed it when you chose it over me. I just made sure everyone knew. Kael flinched. You're right. About all of it. The scouts, the hunting, trying to control you even after I'd thrown you away. I am, an idiot. Why am I here, Kael? Because I need you to know the truth. I didn't choose Sarah because I stopped caring about you. I chose her because I was terrified. His voice broke. Terrified that I wasn't strong enough to protect Silver Ridge on my own. That I needed more More power, more alliances, more everything. And you were so strong, so capable, and I started to feel like I was the one who needed you instead of the other way around. So you replaced me.
So I sabotaged us. Convinced myself the Varen Alliance was about the pack, when really it was about proving I could make the hard choices. That I was the alpha everyone believed I was. He took a step closer. But I was wrong. About everything. And now Silver Ridge is paying the price. What do you want from me, Kael? Nothing. I just wanted you to know that you were right. That I was a coward. And that losing you was the worst mistake I've ever made. Alara looked at him. Really looked. At the man she'd loved for 6 years. The man who'd destroyed that love with his own hands. Thank you for saying that, she said quietly. It doesn't change anything, but thank you. I know. I know you're with Riker now, that you've moved on, that you'll never trust me again. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just wanted you to hear the truth from me instead of whatever story people are telling. The truth is you hurt me, broke something that can't be fixed. Alara's voice was steady. But the truth is also that I'm stronger now than I ever was as your Luna, so maybe we both needed this to happen. Kael's smile was broken. You were always strong. I was just too stupid to see it. Yeah, you were. They stood in silence as the sun finished setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. This was closure, Alara realized. The ending she needed. Goodbye, Kael, she said. Goodbye, Alara. She walked away without looking back. Riker emerged from the trees, falling into step beside her. You okay? He asked. Yeah. And she was. For the first time in months, she actually was. I'm okay. They traveled for 3 more weeks, following no particular path, just moving. They found a small settlement at the edge of the Western Territories. Not a pack, just a collection of wolves who'd chosen to live outside traditional pack structure. A place for outcasts and wanderers and anyone who didn't fit the usual molds. It felt like home. They built a cabin at the settlement's edge, using lumber Riker cut and skills Alara had forgotten she possessed. It wasn't fancy, just 2 rooms and a porch that overlooked the valley. But it was theirs, built with their own hands, belonging to no one but them. 6 months after leaving Iron Ridge, Alara woke to find Riker already up, sitting on the porch with coffee. Morning, she said, joining him. Morning. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun rise over the valley. Down below, other wolves were beginning their day. Farmers heading to fields, builders working on new structures, children playing near the stream. Any regrets? Riker asked. Alara thought about it. About Silver Ridge and Kael and the life she'd left behind. About Dante's war that had fizzled when she withdrew her support, leaving Kael weakened but still standing. About all the choices that had led her here. No, she said. Not one. Good. Riker pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. Because I was thinking maybe we should make this permanent. It's already permanent. We built a cabin. I meant us. Alara pulled back to look at him. Riker Dane, are you asking me to bond with you? Maybe, if you're interested. His smile was uncertain, vulnerable in a way she rarely saw. No politics, no alliances, just us. Building something that's ours. Alara kissed him, long and thorough and full of promise. Yes, she said. Absolutely yes. The bonding ceremony was small. Just them and a few wolves from the settlement standing under an oak tree as old as the territory itself. No formal speeches or political witnesses. Just 2 wolves choosing each other freely, without pressure or expectation or anything except honest want. When it was done, Alara felt the bond settle into place, different from what she'd had with Kael. Stronger, clearer, built on truth instead of convenience. How does it feel? Riker asked. Like coming home. News from the wider territories filtered in slowly. Silver Ridge had stabilized under Kael's leadership, though he'd never fully recovered the respect he'd lost. Sarah had bonded with another alpha, one whose territory actually needed the Varen Alliance. Dante continued his expansion, though without Alara's story to justify it, other alphas had united against him, keeping Iron Ridge contained. The world kept turning, politics kept shifting, alphas kept making choices, good and bad, and Alara stopped caring about any of it. She had her cabin, her settlement,
Her mate who chose her every single day, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. She had herself, the version she'd fought to become. Strong without being hard. Honest without being cruel. Free without being lost. One evening, nearly a year after leaving Iron Ridge, a messenger arrived at their cabin. Silver Ridge colors. Older this time, someone Alara recognized from her Luna days. "I have a message from Alpha Thorn," the messenger said, offering a sealed letter. Alara took it but didn't open it immediately. "How is he?" "Surviving. The pack is stable, but he's changed, quieter. They say he goes to the eastern border sometimes, to the clearing where you last spoke, just stands there. Tell him I hope he finds what he's looking for." "Will you read his letter?" "Maybe, someday." Alara tucked it into her pocket. "Thank you for bringing it." After the messenger left, Riker raised an eyebrow. "Aren't you curious?" "Not really." Alara leaned against him. "Whatever he has to say, it doesn't change my life now. And that's what matters." She burned the letter that night, unread, watched the paper curl and blacken in their fireplace, releasing whatever words Kael had written into smoke and ash. It felt like closing a book, finishing a story that no longer needed to be told. Spring came to the valley, bringing new wolves to the settlement. Among them was a young female who'd left her pack after refusing a bonding she didn't want. She was scared, lost, uncertain of who she was outside pack structure. Alara recognized that look, had worn it herself not so long ago. "You're Alara Voss," the young wolf said shyly. "I heard about you, about what you did at the council. That was a different life. But you stood up for yourself, chose yourself over pack politics. That's brave." Alara smiled. "It wasn't brave. It was necessary. There's a difference." "How did you know it was the right choice?" "I didn't. Not at first. But I knew staying where I wasn't wanted, where I was just a piece in someone else's game. That was worse than any risk I'd face by leaving." The young wolf nodded slowly. "I'm scared." "Good. Being scared means you're alive. The question is whether you let that fear control you or motivate you." Over the following months, Alara found herself becoming something unexpected. A mentor. Wolves came to the settlement looking for the former Luna who challenged an alpha and survived. Looking for proof that you could walk away from pack structure and build something better. She taught them what she'd learned, how to survive outside pack protection, how to trust themselves when no one else was making decisions for them, how to build a life that was theirs instead of someone else's vision. And slowly, the settlement grew into something resembling a pack. Not traditional, no single alpha, no rigid hierarchy, just wolves who'd chosen to be there, who supported each other because they wanted to, not because structure demanded it. 2 years after leaving Silver Ridge, Alara stood on her porch watching the settlement thrive. Children playing in the stream, adults working together to build new homes, wolves laughing, arguing, living. "You did this," Riker said, coming up behind her. "We did this." "No, you did. I just followed you here." He wrapped his arms around her. "You built something better than what you left behind." "I built something honest." Alara leaned back against him. "That's all I ever wanted." That night, she dreamed of Silver Ridge for the first time in months. Dreamed of walking through the pack house one last time, saying goodbye to the wolf she'd been there. The Luna who'd tried so hard to be perfect, to be enough. In the dream, that version of herself smiled and walked away, disappearing into light. Alara woke at dawn, peace settling over her like morning mist. She'd let it go. All of it. The hurt and anger and need for vindication. The woman who'd stood in that council chamber demanding to be heard had been necessary, had been right. But she didn't need to be that woman anymore. She could just be Alara, building a life with someone who chose her freely, leading wolves who wanted her guidance instead of those obligated to follow, creating something new instead of trying to reclaim what was lost. Months turned into years. The settlement flourished, and Alara discovered that the life she'd been so terrified to face alone, the one without titles or pack structure or someone else defining who she should be, was exactly the life she'd needed all along. She was no longer the discarded Luna, no longer the wronged mate seeking justice, no longer the political weapon in someone else's war. She was just Alara, bonded to Riker, leading a settlement that had become home, living a life she'd chosen for herself. And that, finally, completely, was enough. Standing on her porch one evening, watching the sun set over the valley, Alara thought about the girl who'd stood in that amphitheater 3 years ago, scared, angry, desperate to prove she was more than what Kael had reduced her to. That girl had been brave, had stood up when it mattered, had refused to be erased. But this woman, the one who'd learned to build instead of just survive, to lead without controlling, to love without fear, she was free. And freedom, Alara had finally learned, wasn't about proving yourself to people who'd never valued you. It was about choosing yourself every single day, until that choice became as natural as breathing. Riker joined her on the porch, sliding his hand into hers. Below them, the settlement glowed with lamplight. Their home, their pack, their life. "No regrets?" he asked, like he always did. Alara smiled, squeezing his hand. "Not one." And for the first time in as long as she could remember, that was absolutely true.